Hi, I'm Steve Dunton. I'm 37 years old. From the time I finished university, I worked for a number of different IT businesses, both in hardware and software. I became fortunate enough to become engaged with Microsoft, who gave me the opportunity to travel both to the States, the Middle East and Australia and the Far East, engaging with their clients and the organisation themselves. In her early 20s, my wife backpacked in Australia for a year and I came to visit her a couple of times during that trip, and we both at that point formed an attraction and an affinity with Australia, although I was quite happy with the direction our life was taking. After we got married and we started planning to have a family, we both considered and realised that there were potentially better places than the UK to raise a family, and Australia for various reasons became top of our list because she's a midwife and hence her qualification was equally as valid here as in the UK. Midwives were an occupation in demand and I would have the freedom to continue my IT work over here. So Australia became the place of choice and we became independent skilled migrants in 2000.
And how did you end up in business? Did you start a business straight off? Did you buy one?
No, I had absolutely no intention of going into business when I first came over here. Having had my independent consultancy just before I left the UK, I felt that it would be too difficult to start here without having a network of contacts and stuff. So my intention was to move into employment. However, I quickly discovered with the Australian job market that one, it was quiet because of the global financial crisis, and secondly, even trying to take lower paid jobs over here in the IT sector, they wanted somebody with some form of local experience. So to actually even get a start with anybody proved incredibly difficult. I ended up sitting down with a recruitment consultant and saying, we need to find a plan to get me into work somehow. And I think the best way of doing that is just agreeing to do some short-time holiday cover anywhere, just for a couple of weeks, just to get me something provable on my CV that's local and easily referenceable.
And it gives you a bit of experience in the job market. It tells you, what, how things are done in the workplace, etc. Is that right?
Absolutely, but I think as much as anything, people found the process of just trying to check overseas references too hard. There was no reference point they understood. If you quote a bank to them in the UK, they've got no idea whether that's a mum and pop operation or whether it's a huge multinational, and those kind of things just become a challenge. So I got a 2-week holiday cover contract at the Mater Hospital in Brisbane that got renewed and became a 5-week contract. But once that had come to an end, all of a sudden I was able to get meaningful interviews because they could see that I'd had a contract locally that had been extended, and what that led me into a full-time for a short period of time and then a longer-term consultancy engagement with an insurance client in Brisbane. That, as it became part-time, gave me the opportunity to get some of the intellectual property I've developed over the years off the ground, and a chance to maybe not carry all my eggs in one basket for the time forward. I had the luxury of a consultancy gig to keep me going whilst I developed my own
business. So Steve, what I'm hearing is that you had, there were some advantages to basically not come to Australia and hit exactly the same job as you had before. Is that right?
That's, for me, very much the case. I felt that if you start a new experience, it depends, I suppose, on why you've chosen to change countries. But for me, this was supposed to be a fresh start, a new beginning, and I was very conscious of the fact that I didn't necessarily want to start in a new country with all of my old habits. So I had to be open-minded about the way forward, but still respectful of the skills and the knowledge and the experience I'd built up over the years, so that I could make the most of what I'd been given and what I'd earned over the years, but yet still take advantage of the fact that I live in a new country and I'd have different opportunities available to me.
Right, so you started basically doing consulting work. You knew you were able to do a lot more complex type of job. but you started off doing that. That got you going, and then how did you develop into running your own business? How did that evolve?
It evolved through a number of mechanisms. I was introduced to the guy that's my business partner by a recruitment consultant actually, who felt that we were both guys who worked outside of the box and were both trying to do similar things. So we were introduced by a mutual acquaintance, and we shared some ideas, and that led us to the fact that we felt we had a product, but we then needed to raise some funding to get that developed and to market. And we utilised my business partner's contacts to get some funding, and then we moved forward on that basis. But it's been an interesting journey. The Australian market is different in terms of pace from what I'm used to. I've found both working in the UK and the States, expectation management is much stronger over there than it is here, and the pace is very different, and so it takes longer to close deals than I'd ever previously had the experience of. And I wouldn't say people necessarily get distracted, but things do take longer than I'd been used to working elsewhere in the world.